Do you want to be more successful in life? Whether it's in your property investing, in your personal life, or your professional or business life, life's going to throw challenges at you. Just look what happened over the last couple of years. So allow me to let you into a little home truth. It takes a special kind of fortitude to be successful. And when the going gets tough, the tough don't get going. They reach for a winning prescription, and it's something called mental toughness. It's what separates the elite from the average performers. So what's all this mental toughness about? It's been described as the ability to work hard and respond resiliently to failure and adversity. It's the inner quality that enables certain individuals to work hard and stick to their long-term passions and goals, whether it's in investing, in their career, in their professions. And it's the topic of today's podcast with Mark Creedon, founder and CEO of Business Accelerator Mastermind. So while you've probably subscribed to this podcast to become more successful in your property investing or around money, you know that a couple of times each month I get together with Mark to discuss the psychology of success, which is just as important in money matters and investing as it is in business, and in fact in all areas of your life. So if you want to reach the top, if you want to be successful as a property investor or reach the peak in business or your profession, you're going to benefit from my chat with Mark Creedon today. So welcome to today's podcast.
Welcome to the Michael Yardney podcast, where twice each week you will learn a number of new ideas regarding success, property investment, and money in around 30 minutes. Our show is brought to you by Metropole, who specialise in helping you grow, protect, and pass on your wealth through strategic property and wealth advice. Now, here's your host, Michael Yardney, Australia's authority in wealth creation through property, who has been voted one of Australia's top 50 most influential thought leaders.
We all reach critical points in our life where our mental toughness is tested. And look, it might be a toxic friend, a colleague, a dead-end job, struggling relationship, a challenge with your investments, or maybe a business problem. So how do you get through? How do you carry on? Can we really be mentally tough? That's one of the questions I want to ask Mark Creedon, founder of Business Accelerator Mastermind and coach to some of Australia's most successful business people and entrepreneurs. Hi, Mark.
Hello, Michael. This should be fun.
Yes. So, well, let's start with the obvious question. What is mental toughness?
Yeah, it's a great question to start with, obviously. I think it's a measure of somebody's resilience, their confidence. And interestingly, Michael, it actually came from the world of sport. And it was used to predict the potential of success of an individual in sport. But I think it definitely translates to the workplace. And in fact, I think it translates to life in general, Michael.
Right. So is it an innate quality? Is it something that you're born with, or is it something you can learn, Mark?
No, I don't think it's something that's bestowed upon the lucky or inherited somehow. I think mental toughness is actually a choice. But Michael, it's more than a choice. It's actually a discipline. So it's been said that a person of modest means, or maybe a person with less formal education, can really become world class by implementing the thinking, the habits, and the philosophies associated with the principle of mental toughness. So I think mental toughness is actually one of the most important leadership skills you can attain, and I like to think it's a true indicator of success, Michael.
Well, I guess this is one of the themes of our regular podcasts. While you love talking about business and property because you're a property investor, and I love talking about property and money and success, there are some psychological habits. There are some ways that people can move up the rungs, whether it's of investments, of business, just even relationships. So that's why I'm also pleased that you chose this topic for us to talk about, because I think it's going to relate to, well, I hope it relates to everyone who's listening to us. So let's start with, what are some of the characteristics that people who are mentally tough got? What separates them?
Oh, I think if I can quote Dr. Peter Close, a psychologist, he developed the mental toughness training model. And in it, Michael, he talks about what he calls the 4 C's, right? The 4 C's to mental toughness. And they are confidence, challenge, control, and commitment.
Okay, well, let's look at each of these in turn, Mark.
Sure. So let's look at confidence first. I mean, the first question to ask is, do you believe in yourself? Do you believe in your own abilities? Can you effectively, navigate what challenges and conflict might be thrown at you? Do you actually have well-developed social skills? And I think that people who are self-confident, Michael, they believe they can achieve success. And so they believe that it's not about the obstacles they encounter. They work hard to develop themselves. They're happy to work in competitive environments, and they're really proactive, decisive, and I think they're prepared to step outside the sphere of fear, I think.
So it's a bit like wasn't it Henry Ford said, if you believe you can, you can. If you believe you can't, you can't.
Yeah, 100%. Either way, you're right.
Yeah. So you've got to start with belief. Okay. So the first one is having confidence. We'll maybe talk about how we get that in a moment. What's the next one? Challenge.
I think it's about challenge. So it's whether or not you can thrive in an environment that is constantly changing and presenting new opportunities for learning and growth.
Some people don't like that, do they? They don't like change.
No, some people don't like change. But it's interesting, Michael, because you said at the outset that, we talk business, we talk success, we talk property because I'm a property investor. You talk business because you're also a very successful business operator. But one of the things that I've always watched you do in business is be open to that constant change, to be on scanning the horizon for those new opportunities, for learning, for growth. And I think people who embrace those challenges, they tend to have quite an extraordinary ability to think outside the box. And what happens is they become focused on positive outcomes. And that's how they take advantage of the opportunities that come their way, Michael.
That makes sense because there are lots of opportunities out there, more than you can ever handle. So change is necessary. It's part of the world. It offers a new way of you growing. So accept challenges. Great. But that then leads to maybe number 3. It actually leads into this concept of control, because I've often said that you should feel like you're in control, the pilot of your life, not just a passenger being dragged along.
And how many people have we spoken to over the years, Michael, that not only feel like a passenger, but behave like a passenger, but then complain about being a passenger? So I think you absolutely feel that you have to feel that you've got control over your life. And with that control comes the power to shape the destiny. And really it's about the ebb and flow, isn't it? It's about life's up and downs and how do you deal with them. And I think people with a strong sense of control, they tend to be more relaxed. They tend to be more self-confident. They're probably better at regulating their emotions as well, which I think is a really important part of being in control.
That's interesting. I've never thought about it that way, but it actually makes sense, because if you feel out of control, you're much more likely to be nervous, tense, worried, uncertain.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you think that you've got the power to influence the outcome, then suddenly, lo and behold, that's exactly what will happen. You will have that power to influence the outcome because you are in control.
Okay, and the 4th C was commitment.
It could have been an S instead. I guess it could have been stickability, but it's really about, being committed to achieving outcomes, setting the goals, working consistently to achieve them. And it gets back to, Michael, when we spoke about challenges and control. Even when you get setbacks, things don't go quite right. You're not in for the short haul, you're in for the long haul. And so you stay committed to the task.
I think one of the terms we've used in our previous chats is resilience. It's much the same, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely it is. It's all about seeing how you can deal with the challenges that come along, stick to the plan. But at the same time, I guess, and we see this all the time, you've got to stick to the plan, but you've also got to keep your eyes and ears open for reasons as to why you might just want to vary that plan as you go along.
Makes sense. Okay, so I can see that we need mental toughness to succeed, no matter what our background is, what industry we're in, or what we're talking about, whether it's investment or business. It's the secret sauce to being the top performer in your game, and especially in tough times. And we've been challenged with tough times the last couple of years. And even though we're through some of those challenges, the world's going to keep throwing challenges at us. It seems like it's a lot more, though, than just leadership traits, and it's not something you're born with. So let's look at the various components one by one. Let's look at some of the habits, Mark, of how one could improve mental toughness, because it's easy to say those 4 C's, but what strategies are people using? What actually do you need to do?
Yeah, wouldn't it be great if it was just as easy as, memorizing those 4 C's and suddenly I'm mentally tough, but it's actually a lot harder than that.
But I guess part of what I'm asking you this for is because we can improve it. So a lot of people listening to this are already successful. So we're not belittling your already successful achievements. But that doesn't mean you could even get higher up the ladder, do better in your investments, in business, in your professional career. So let's see what others do so that we can learn from them.
Yeah, 100%. So I think one of the first things I see, Michael, is that people who have this real mental toughness, they're emotionally intelligent.
That's different from IQ, though, isn't
Yeah,
it?
it is. Well, it is 100%. I mean, EQ or emotional intelligence is kind of a flexible skill, and you can actually improve it. Can you improve your IQ? You can certainly become better educated, but your EQ is something that it's about understanding and tolerating emotions, Michael, and being able to deal with very strong negative emotions, being very productive with them, being able to deal with the moments that test your mental toughness. That's what emotional intelligence is really all about.
Okay, so we're looking at the traits of mentally tough people, and number one is they're emotionally intelligent, they're tolerant of strong emotions, and they know how to do something productive with them, which is a different thing again. What's the next trait of mentally tough people, Mark?
Well, it leans back to the four C's we spoke about, and it is about confidence. But you gave the Henry Ford quote before, which I thought was really apt, and it's mentally tough people. They subscribe to that concept, and Michael, it's funny for people listening to this. You can use this in business, you can use this in your investment, use this in your life. I actually use it with my grandkids. I sort of say to them, whether you think you can do something or whether you think you can't, you're right. I think sometimes they look at me a little bit quizzically, but I'm sure it'll sink. I'm sure it'll sink in over time.
I actually read something about a study at the University of Melbourne, Australia, showed that confident people in general earned higher wages, got promoted more quickly than others did, were more successful. And you know what? Makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I think the really important things, we've often heard the term about faking it till you make it. Now, that's false confidence. There's an element sometimes where false confidence is needed. I'm going to make this work, and I'm going to make it look like I know what I'm doing. But this is true confidence. It's not something used to mask an insecurity. It's not puffing your chest out. It's actually mentally tough people have got the upper hand over the doubtful because their confidence inspires other people to get on board with them, and that's how they make things happen, I think.
Okay, let's work through some more traits of mentally tough people, Mark.
Well, mentally tough people don't have toxic people in their lives. Toxic people, they find them difficult to deal with. They don't like to be around them. They deal in rationality. So when they are dealing with toxic people, they're very rational about it. And I think the other thing too is that mentally tough people, because of their emotional intelligence, have the ability to stand in the other person's shoes. And this is something that you and I talk about a lot, particularly with team members, Michael. We have to understand where is that person coming from, so that they consider a difficult person's standpoint, they find common ground, they find solutions to problems, and they're able to take toxic people with a bit of a grain of salt. So in other words, what they do is they say, stay steadfast and not let a toxic person bring them down.
Now, it's interesting, Mark, because you're bringing up these points, and I'm finding them interesting as we go through them. But you and I have got a good common friend, Tom Corley, who's done a rich habits study and made a list of the habits of the rich and successful people in his study. Boy, are there some interesting commonalities.
Yeah, it's funny. When I was sort of doing some work on this and research for this, it reminded me very much of that great book that you and Tom wrote, that I've read a couple of times and thoroughly enjoy.
Rich Habits, Poor Habits, which has now been translated into 5-6 different languages, and they actually approached us to translate it to Russian, but that was just before the outbreak, and I decided not to go ahead with the Russian publishers. My little stand against what's happening on the other side of the world.
Well, you know what can I say? You say it's your little stand, but I think it's a valid stand, and yeah, good on you. I applaud that. So, Michael, we were talking about the similarities between Tom's study on rich habits. You'll recognize this one then. The other thing that mentally tough people do is they embrace change. They're flexible, they're constantly adapting, and they know that a fear of change is actually paralyzing, and it is a major threat to success and happiness. I mean, how many times have you and I seen, either in investing or in business, where people become so paralyzed by change? And Michael, we've seen it in people that we've had in our Mastermind program who then, it doesn't work because they are so afraid of making that change. Mentally tough people know that when you embrace change, you find the good, they go in with an open mind, open arms, they recognize it, they capitalize on it, and surprisingly, that's when the opportunities present themselves.
Well, it's clear when you think about it rationally. Clearly, these people don't, because you're bound to fail if you keep doing the same things that you're doing if they never got you to the right place the first time. I can't remember. I think they put it down to Einstein, but whoever said it, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. But isn't it interesting? I know in Mastermind, you sit down with our clients one-on-one, you speak to them, you tell them what they've got to do, you give them a plan of how they've got to change and step it out. Some still don't.
Yeah, they don't. I mean, and as a result, they don't stay in Mastermind for very long. But, mentally tough people actually embrace this change, and that's how you're going to move things to the next level. Just, Michael, you were saying before that people listening to this are already successful, and so we're not looking to minimize that. But I think the thing about successfully mentally tough people is they never accept the level of success that they've achieved. They're always looking for the next step up.
So Mark, what are some more traits of mentally tough people?
No.
What?
No, they say no.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, Michael, you're talking about some research. There was a good paper that came out of UCLA showing that actually it was San Francisco, but it's still the University of California. But it said that the more difficulty you have saying no, the more likely you are to experience stress, burnout, depression. And it makes sense when you think about it because
Doesn't it?
Because the more you say yes to, the more overwhelmed you can become. And others can often be very happy just to let you take more and more and more and keep saying yes. So mentally tough people know how to say no, and they realize that saying no is healthy, and they've also got the confidence, the self-esteem, and the foresight, I think, to make their no very clear to other people.
Okay, so they make it clear. They don't say, "Oh, I don't think I can," or "I'm not certain." A no is a no, and there's nothing wrong with that. You shouldn't feel bad or ashamed about that, because otherwise you're playing to other people's agendas.
Well, you are, but the interesting twist on that, I think, is that not only are they able to say no to other people, but they're able to say no to themselves as well.
Oh,
yeah. So they can delay gratification, they can avoid
yes.
impulsive action.
Yes.
So mentally tough people will say no to others, but are also able to say no to themselves, Michael.
So this is really interesting because it does then translate to all sorts of areas. And within property investing, one has to have the discipline of saving, saying no to things, having delayed gratification, doing the hard things now so that you can have an easy life later, while the average person does the easy things now and then they have a hard life later and blame other people because they're not the pilot of their life. It's somebody else's fault.
Well, it's probably a very nice segue into what I think is another really big component of being mentally tough, Michael, and that's that they embrace fear. They know that when it's all said and done, they'll probably lament the chances they didn't take far more than they will the failures that they've made. So they're not afraid to take risks. So, you often hear the saying, "Oh, what's the worst thing that can happen? Will it kill you?" And yet I think, if we think about it, it's sort of hard to say dying isn't the worst thing that can happen to you. But in fact, sometimes allowing yourself to die inside while you're still alive, not take the opportunities that are presented to you, to always live in a bubble of fear, may well be worse than the ultimate outcome, I guess.
Sure. So part of it is accepting that things won't always go right. You will have failures, and it's just another lesson on the way to learn the right way to do things. You've got to accept that you fall down and you just got to get up one more time. So don't let fear hold you back. It's so easy to be scared of the unknown. So embracing failure, I guess, is another of the traits.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you are in touch with the fear and you're prepared to move beyond that fear, then that means that you'll embrace the failure. And Michael, and you and I know this well, that the road to success is paved with failure. I mean, I don't know anybody either that we know personally or famous people who have had great success who haven't had great failures in their life.
If they haven't tried hard enough. And you've heard me say it before that I'm a real success at failure. I guess you've just got to be more successful, have more wins than you have losers, or bigger wins. So you only need one or two big wins, even though you've got little failures along the way.
I think also if you're mentally tough, that when those failures come along, you actually stop and look at them and you look at, right, what do I need to do? And I think often the really big breakthroughs come when you are in that position where you're frustrated about the failure that you've had.
So when you've had the failure, like mentally tough people, in my mind, actually don't dwell on their mistakes. They just accept it as part of the journey.
No, well, that's right, because they know that where they focus their attention actually determines the emotional state. So if you're focusing your attention on the failure that you've had or the mistake that you've made, then that's where you stay. That becomes the predictor of the outcome.
So they distance themselves from their mistake, but they do so without forgetting them by keeping the mistakes at a safe distance, yet still handy enough to refer to them. They adapt, they adjust, they move on to future success. Now, again, it depends in what arena we're talking, because making a mistake in property investing, I've seen people buy the wrong properties, and that actually takes them out of the market for years or decades. They can't sell up because they're going to have negative equity. They can't borrow more because the property is costing them a fortune. So, of course, we're not suggesting just make mistakes and it'll all be okay. I guess that's part of the benefit of having the right mentors around you, learning from the right people, avoiding mistakes. It's much the same in business if you can actually get the right coaches and mentors to prevent you. Somebody who's been there, somebody who can see the landmines so that you don't step into them, Mark.
Yeah, exactly. And surrounding yourself with other mentally tough people, Michael, I think is a really important part of the process. So I think the other thing that mentally tough people do, Michael, is they don't let people limit their joy. You often say this about, not comparing your chapter 3 to somebody else's chapter 15, and you might use different numbers to that. But, I think when you get...
My chapter 15's gone a long time ago, Mark.
No, you and me both, mate. But I think that if you get your sense of pleasure, your sense of satisfaction, if it comes from comparing yourself to others, then you're no longer the master of your own happiness. You're no longer the captain of your own ship. And so what I think mentally tough people do is they feel good about themselves for something that they've done. And there are times, you have to listen to other people's opinions and you have to take on board what other people have to say, but it doesn't mean that you let it drive you. So they won't let others' opinions or even other people's accomplishments take away from them what they've actually achieved.
Sure. So you've got to see what you've achieved. But I think another thread to this is that they're not jealous of other people's successes either. So they're actually saying, hey, if he can do it, I can aspire to it. If they can build a multi-million-dollar property portfolio on their income, there's no reason why I can't. If they can build a business that gives them the lifestyle choices they want, there's no reason why I can't. And I actually see that as one of the great benefits in Business Accelerator Mastermind, where when they get together, whether it's on the Zoom calls or the intensives where we all sit in the same room, where they actually feed on each other, they help each other, they won't let other people limit their joy because they actually don't see it that way. No. It's not a competition.
No. They see that they think in abundance. There's plenty to go around. They celebrate each other's success.
Yes.
Yeah. And Michael, the thing is, let's be honest, we've probably all had moments of jealousy or we've all had moments of resentment, but how sort of life-sucking is that when it happens to you? It takes an awful lot of energy that's really wasted. So I guess that's a big thing that mentally tough people don't focus on. They really celebrate the success of others.
I'm seeing that a lot at the moment with property, where there's the trolls on the internet chasing me saying, it's not fair that you own so many properties. You're a greedy, ugly property investor, when I still have to look for social housing and can't get it. And they blame other people about it. And it's always somebody else's fault. While I do agree that it's part of my responsibility to educate people, to help people, to bring people up to the next level now that I've actually reached the top, and that's part of what we're doing here, I think that there's also a similar vein in businesses that if other people have managed to achieve it, why don't you just hang around them, get their same lessons, get the same coaches and grow. And that's probably a good segue. We've got lots of more things about mental tough people I want to ask you about, but just you mentioned, and I've mentioned Business Accelerator Mastermind a few times. Maybe I should declare that you are I've only got 2 business coaches and you're one of them, and you've been my longest standing one. You've helped me take my business from, I guess, a job in some ways to a national business that I now have a lot of fun working from home and don't work in the business anymore, on the business. I know you've dealt with a lot of other successful business owners, and when I saw how successful it was when I was referring our clients to you, I thought, hey, I've got to be part of this, and we've joined together quite a few years ago now to build Business Accelerator Mastermind. Maybe you could just tell us a bit about how you help these people.
Well, Michael, Business Accelerator Mastermind is a business coaching program that helps service business owners and professional people to build a business that is less reliant on them. It really is about having a business, not a job. It's working on helping them to move them to the next level, to bring the next layer of people underneath them to move to the next level. And it's done by one-on-one. There's one-on-one work. They get to work with me. We map out what we call a game plan. We do that every 90 days. We work together to create the plan. And then there's also lots of group work, which leans into what you were saying before. There's this shared wisdom and collective momentum. All of the sessions are run by Zoom, except, Michael, 3 times a year. 3 times a year we get together, and we do it on the Gold Coast, Sydney and Melbourne, where all of our clients fly in from around Australia and New Zealand, and we spend a couple of days working on their business. And it's all very practical and real world. There's no theory to it. It's very, very practical based.
A lot of them actually came to Wealth Retreat, and it was great to spend 5 days with them as well. So if you want to understand how you can share the same business coach as I do, go to metropolemastermind.com.au. There'll be a link in the show notes, metropolemastermind.com.au. And Mark, are you happy to have a chat with them and see how you could help?
Yeah, absolutely. We'd love to.
Who's it not for?
It's not for people who are in startup phase. It's not for people who are, waiting for a redundancy payment and are thinking about maybe they might get into a business at some stage. It's for people who are already in business, already successful, but frankly, have a business that they can't step out of for extended periods of time.
Now, it's really interesting because there are solo operators, there are people with retail industries, quite a number of professionals, mainly in Australia, but quite a number overseas as well, to multi-car franchise dealers, multi-franchise car dealers, maybe I should say it the right way around, Mark. But I think one of the other real benefits is by you dealing with people in lots of industries. Sure, there's a lot of people in the real estate and finance industry and world as well, though, but you actually bring wisdom from other areas.
Yeah, that's right. We can see things that have worked in, for example, the car industry that somebody in the real estate or finance industry may never have come across, because we tend to associate with people from similar industries, don't we? And so there's a pool of knowledge that we tap into. So it's great to be able to expand that pool and tap into things that we've seen work elsewhere.
Okay, look, getting back to the mentally tough people, we actually said that they don't let others limit their joy. But I think one of the things that come out of dealing with some great people at Metropol and Metropol Business Accelerator Mastermind, I found that mentally tough people don't limit the joy of others either. They don't actually pass judgment on them. Everyone's got something to offer you. Everyone I've come across knows something about something that I don't know about. So I'm prepared to have an open mind.
Yeah, and the reality is, if we talk about Mastermind, we've got some really clever people in there that know things that you and I don't know. And the opportunity for all of our members to learn from them, I think, is fantastic. Michael, the other thing I think, if we sort of lean over to a bit of some of the physical things now that mentally tough people do, is they exercise. And I know this is something that you and I joke about, but the reality is we both exercise. I know you exercise. I know that because when we were on the Gold Coast together, I ran into you in the gym.
Well, not physically, but yes, we were both there.
That's right. People who exercise, twice a week, they tend to feel they feel more socially competent. They feel more intellectually competent. They feel better about themselves, and as a result, their level of confidence increases, and that just gets back to that, that 4 C's of mental toughness we said at the very beginning.
Sure. I mean, there is some physiological reasoning behind that as well, because if you exercise, you do get that endorphin-fueled positivity. It does make a difference. It does create a different state of mind that helps you, I guess, be mentally tough. you're talking about physical things, I guess the other thing, and again, isn't it interesting? They're the same things that Tom Corley talks about. He talks about exercise. He also talks about sleep, Mark.
Yeah, sleep's a wonder drug, isn't it? I mean, it's. I think sometimes it's a bit difficult to overstate the importance of sleep. When you sleep, your brain removes all sorts of toxic proteins, byproducts of neural activity, and your brain really can't remove them adequately while you're awake, but absolutely can while you're asleep. So the more sleep that you get, to get enough sleep, mentally tough people, they know their self-control, their focus, their memory, they're all reduced when you don't get either enough, Michael, or the right kind of sleep. Because, I mean, I think it was Albert Einstein that said he survived on 5 hours a night. It worked for him. It was 5 good hours. We all have a different number, but it's about getting enough sleep for you that makes you feel refreshed, confident, in control, and therefore more mentally tough.
Can't you just make it up by having more coffee, Mark?
Well, interesting. That's the other thing they do, Michael. They limit their caffeine intake. What we know, if we talk about the neuropsychology behind these things, that drinking excessive amounts of caffeine triggers the release of adrenaline, and that increases the fight or flight response. So the problem with the fight or flight mechanism, and we've often talked about this before, it's how we've been able to evolve to where we are now. But the problem with that mechanism in our current where we are now is it sidesteps rational thinking. So it's a quick survival response. What we really want to be doing is, if we're mentally tough, we want to be taking rational thought, as we said, controlling the emotions, being in control of the situation, and therefore controlling the outcome.
Interesting. Well, I think I've had a lot of the traits of mentally tough people. I think I've done okay in my success in life. That's one I've actually had real difficulty with the caffeine intake. It's going to make me consider it, but I'm not sure I'm prepared to give it up. But I don't think that's what you're saying either. It's just having it in regulated amounts.
No, absolutely. I'm not advocating giving up, and maybe a little less Baileys in your coffee moving forward, Michael. But but no, look, I get up in the morning and as you know, I have a pretty, I'm going to say strict, but a pretty set morning routine. But it includes a coffee first thing in the morning. So it's not about stopping caffeine. It's about being sensible about the amount of caffeine you intake.
Okay, a couple more traits of mentally tough people, Mark.
There's a couple to round us out. Michael, they don't wait for an apology to forgive. They know that life goes a lot smoother once you let go of grudges. And part of letting go of a grudge, I think, is being prepared to forgive even those who've never said they're sorry. I mean, we spoke before about having sort of, lots of negative emotions through jealousy and those sorts of negative emotions. I think it's the same with holding a grudge. The negative emotions that come from holding onto a grudge, I think create a stress response in the body. I think they can have devastating consequences, both physiologically and mentally. And I think the big thing that they keep in mind is this: to forgive someone doesn't mean that you condone their actions. It simply frees you from being their eternal victim.
Isn't that interesting? It goes back to, I think, one of the first points you mentioned, the emotional intelligence.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, one last point, Mark.
Yeah, Michael, hey, let's finish on a high note. They're relentlessly positive.
Are you sure about that?
Absolutely positive. You and I had this conversation over dinner last week when we were talking about good news and bad news. And I shared with you that I've got a good news app on my phone. The problem is if you watch the news at any given time, it's only bad news. And the problem is that there's lots of things that you actually can't have any control over. We spoke about what's going on in Ukraine at the moment. It's bad news, but I can't have any control of that. So what I do is I remain, I look to remain positive. And I think that's what mentally tough people do. I know it's what you do. So we go looking for things that give us that boost, if you like, that positive news. And we focus our energy on directing the things that are within our control and how we feed that with positivity.
Okay, so if people are wondering, well, how do I become mentally tough? I think one of the things to do is hang around the right people. It's been said over and over again that you're a good reflection of the people you hang around with the most, the 5 people you hang around with the most. So if you want to be physically fit, you hang around with other bike riders and wear Lycra, and I wouldn't fit into that category. But if you want to be successful in business, if you're talking about improving your professional business or your profession or your business, then hang around the right people as well. And why not go to Metropole Mastermind and see if it would work for you to be a good fit, and Mark would be a good fit as your business coach, to be part of a community of, I guess I never thought about it before, but they're a community of mentally tough people, Mark.
Yeah, they are. They're a community of very mentally tough people. And a community, as a part of that mental toughness, is just that giving, isn't it? It's that giving and embracing success and other people's success at the same time.
So maybe we should finish off by reminding people that being mentally tough isn't an innate quality. It's not bestowed on just a few people. It's something that you can achieve and enjoy. Now, we've actually spoken to you about the way you can see it in other people, but I think, Mark, you gave so many good points. This is probably one of those shows that people should listen to a second time, put it on 2-speed. We probably don't sound like chipmunks, but I think that Mark gave so many good thoughts on that. Have a think about you. Where do you fit in? How can you change? What can you do? Because it will affect all areas of your life. Mark, thanks a lot, and look forward to our next chat real soon.
Yeah, they're always fun, Michael.
Thank you for taking the last half an hour or so to listen to my chat with Mark Creedon. And if you got some benefit from it, and you know somebody else who'd also benefit, please do them a favour. Tell them about the Michael Yardney podcast. Now, on all podcast apps, there's a little share button down the bottom. You can just click and share a link to the show through your phone if you're listening now, or just tell them about it in the old-fashioned way. It will do them a favour, and to be blunt, it will do me a huge favour, because I love seeing how our lessons are getting out to more and more subscribers every month, which is great. And I've got a bonus for you as a way of saying thank you for being a subscriber. Go to podcastbonus.com.au, where you can get a heap of ebooks and reports. Now, I'll be back again real soon, but you can catch me in between these twice-weekly shows on social media. Just look for Michael Yardney, or join my private Facebook group. Go to Facebook and look for the Property Update Facebook group. I'll be back again real soon. In the meantime, have a great week. Make it a great week.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Michael Yardney podcast, which was brought to you by Metropole, who help their clients grow, protect, and pass on their wealth through strategic property and wealth advice. If you like what you heard and don't already subscribe, you'll find us on iTunes or on your favourite Android app as the Michael Yardney Podcast. Watch out for our next show, which comes to you twice a week, and you'll learn some new ideas about property investment, success and money in around 30 minutes. To get more of Michael's thoughts, go across to www.propertyupdate.com.au and sign up for his daily morning briefing, and you'll hear from not only Michael but a group of leading property success and money experts. And just a reminder that the information you heard in this show today is general educational advice and not specific investment advice, as we don't know your personal circumstances. If you're looking for specific advice, why not ask the team at Metropole to help you?